All right, let's get started. Saul, you set up something really nice for us. Again, thank you for always taking the time to outline. Here's what we've got so that you guys understand what we're going to be talking about today. Saul, here's what Saul put together, a quick outline, just a quick NAR update, then just bringing you into the Homey case. If you didn't know the Homey case, you will after this. And the buyer broker compensation rule, the commission filter rules and practices. And then here's my favorite part, Landian, which is that new business that Josh Sitzer is starting up with a couple of his friends or business partners. And then we've got some time, we'll talk about the Michigan case and why that's important. But Saul, let's start with where we're at with NAR. And if you want to touch a little bit on the appeal with the DOJ probe to the Supreme Court, I think that's important too.
Yeah, you bet. Good to see you again. Miss John Riley, huh?
I know, man, he's sick. He's sick. Hopefully he's all better next week and he joins us.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be. So let's start out by talking about the thing we always talk about is the proposed settlement. And remember, that's civil litigation, and it always gets confused with the DOJ because the DOJ is very interested in what's going on. So we don't have anything really new to talk about with regard to the with regard to the settlement, other than how you doing, right?
Yeah.
We've had this since August 17th. We're starting to see people, hopefully, are starting to get used to a new way of doing business, but we haven't heard the DOJ on this point. But we did hear something recently about NAR and the DOJ, and that's this that the Supreme Court, right, appeal of the DOJ on this reneging of a decision that was made in 2020. So we don't want you to confuse this with the proposed
Two separate
settlement,
things. Yeah.
right? Separate issue. And so what took place was, and it's kind of interesting because it's almost counter to the settlement. And so we had issues with, always had issues with the DOJ, for decades. And so prior to 2020, actually, this goes all the way back to pre-2008. And in 2008, there was this great dispute over what NAR was doing over virtual office websites, over display of data on the internet. And there was a big case in Austin where eRealty sued Austin, again, antitrust. And the DOJ and NAR got together, and there was what was called a consent decree. And that was in 2008. And that was a 10-year consent decree. And they were rules around use of MLS data in a virtual office website. And that expired in 2018. And it was almost like for 10 years, it was hands off. The DOJ was not really messing with the real estate industry because we
Yep.
had this settlement in play from a display of listing information on the internet. So in 2000, as soon as that expired, the Federal Trade Commission and the DOJ scheduled hearings for other practices. As a matter of fact, one of the organizations that was involved in this was the Consumer Federation of America.
Yeah, we know them.
And we know them and Steve Brobeck and that gang, and they've been around for a long time. And that led to where the Department of Justice and NAR got involved in settlement discussions. And what the DOJ didn't like, they didn't like the fact that consumers couldn't see how much compensation was being offered to buyer brokers. They didn't like that.
Yeah.
And they also didn't like the idea that people were saying that your services are free if you represent a buyer.
Mm, mm.
And so NAR and the Department of Justice went back and forth. And then I think it was like the same day that NAR agreed to have MLSs display how much compensation was going to the buyer broker, which the DOJ wanted. They
Hmm.
don't want it now, but they wanted it then.
And they changed their mind a lot. They
They
changed their
changed
mind a
their
lot.
mind, and they wanted to change the rules to where you couldn't say you offered your services for free. And they
Yep.
filed a lawsuit against NAR, and NAR agreed to removing these two items, and the DOJ immediately settled. And so you had all on the same day. We don't like this. NAR said no problem. We'll change it, and you had an agreement. Then you had an election. You had a new administration, and this is not a political statement. This is just reality. And then the new administration's Department of Justice didn't like the settlement made by the previous Department of Justice.
Yep.
And they said, we are not bound by that. And NAR fought that and won. But how do you beat the DOJ?
You really don't, because they'll go another way.
So the DOJ came back and they filed and they got a three-judge panel to two of the three to say, you know what, the DOJ can renege. So DOJ reneged. NAR got the court to say they can't renege. The DOJ got the courts to say they can renege.
Yep.
And then we read this week or last week that NAR filed with the Supreme Court. And what we're going to find out is, can the Department of Justice renege? All right.
Yeah, which is right here, just showing the Housing Wire one. It says NAR will appeal DOJ probe to Supreme Court. And here's where they're filing it. Here's it's file October 10th, 2024. So can you now explain before we get into where we're at now, why is this important? Like what happens if the NAR if the NAR says, okay, you know what, fine, Department of Justice, you win, do whatever you need to do here as far as the probe. What's the danger here?
Well, I think the danger is that the Department of Justice can use its power as a shadow and a potential hammer if they don't get things to go their way, because they can subpoena, they can really harass the industry. So where we sit right now is the DOJ has that power to come back and issue these CIDs, these investigative, similar to a subpoena. And of course, the DOJ can come after you for criminal activity that there's this fear that the DOJ might go further in investigating, creates a lot of work for whoever gets investigated. And some of these matters hopefully had already been put to bed. And if the DOJ can come back and start to resurrect some of this, then that could cause, not to say that it will, but that could cause undue stress. And you might want to, if you get involved in a one of these other cases where you would be willing to back off or to give in or to settle, because let's say the DOJ says that the current proposed now this current proposed settlement, what if the DOJ believes it has doesn't go far enough?
Yeah, which it could. It could be it could come in and say, oh, by the way, we just need to do a little bit more and we'll be okay with it, but you need to put in these and these things,
Yeah, and
right?
if you don't, we got the power to investigate deeper and further.
Especially right now with what they're pressing, right?
Yeah.
So now I have one more question for you and for everyone else here listening. This is why it's important. Saul, what are they looking for?
Well, what we believe, based on statements from the DOJ and based on the statements of interest in the MLS PIN case, is the offer of compensation itself, which according to this proposed settlement, it's still okay off MLS based on those 4 pages or 13I. It's still okay for sellers to offer compensation. But it looks like the DOJ doesn't like that idea and doesn't want it to take place at all, and really believes that any pre-knowledge of how much a seller might be willing to concede to a buyer broker or payment of a buyer broker is a hindrance to competition, and therefore the DOJ is against that.
Got it. So they really want the negotiations to start at the point of offering and the offering from the buyer, not a pre-discussion of, yeah, we've got this amount off the MLS somewhere. That's what the DOJ wants.
Yeah, but because the DOJ, I think, believes that any pre-knowledge of how much a seller is willing to compensate, concede, pay to a buyer broker,
Hmm.
it might end up in certain agents or brokers not showing properties that offer less.
Yeah.
Steering.
Yeah. I mean,
That's the fear.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. We're in a capitalist country, right? For the most part. And
For the
and
most part.
and I think that, in a free market, you would think that that's normal, right? Like you offer some compensation and people then go and show for that compensation, right? It's the incentive. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett says, look, the world revolves around incentives. So in essence, it makes interesting sense. Lynn says every offer is a math problem to see if seller's net is what the seller wants.
Of course.
You are right on. You are perfectly stated. Now let's transition over to the Homey case, because that takes on a different part of something we really haven't talked about, which is group boycotting and conspiracy under NAR MLS rules. How does this affect us, and why is this important?
Well, so group boycotting is one of those items that could be tried per se, right? So it's an egregious violation of antitrust laws. And so what and Homey's not the first company to say this. What they're
True.
saying is that the way the MLS is structured and the way that agents work and interact, companies that offer innovation and lower commissions are discriminated against just based on the system.
Got it.
And so what they're saying is that, be it intentional or otherwise, agents will not use their service, show their listings. And when that happens in mass
Hmm.
conspiracy, that could result in a group boycott or the claim of a group boycott. And so it is interesting because for years we've kind of heard this with companies that offer discount commissions, right? For
Yeah,
years,
all the time.
right? So they say, well, people aren't going to show their listing, and it's part of the steering argument.
Yeah.
And so Homey, and it's not a class action, they're coming in and saying, look, now we believe that the MLS, we believe that the people who sit on the committees, we believe that the leadership, we believe all of these people in these organizations are guilty of group boycott. And now one of the interesting things to me is that with social media, practitioners make it so easy because the evidence that they at least believe that they can boycott is right there in
Mhm.
social media for everybody to see.
Yeah.
Where there actually some quotes here where remarks in Facebook, they're using people's own remarks in Facebook,
Yeah,
right?
we have seen that. Yep.
So one post, I know several agents that omit Homey listings from their hot sheets. Somebody posted that in Facebook. They would be wise to counsel their sellers on the effect of such low broker commissions. Well,
Hmm.
you put that out there in the public, what you're kind of saying is we don't want to do business with these people who charge less than we do.
Interesting. I mean, so side note, okay? I have a question. And look, we always talk this, and maybe to the audience too. What do you think? All of you. The way that I'm looking at this, the Homey case and other companies that have a fear or are angered by feeling like real estate agents or the industry as a whole is steering people away from a lower commission structure? Wouldn't it make more sense if we treat it like any other type of commodity? Like there's a price, here's the price tag on it, right? There's a price. Everyone can see it, the transparency that we removed. So uh, there's a price. If you like it, you go and you use that service for that price. If you don't, there's another option over here, and here's the price. We're not going to steer you, but it's clear that they have a cost, right, for each service. That would make more sense to function that way, but I feel like we went backwards.
Well, I think we did a little bit now, but in the case of this idea of group boycott, when you've got competitors
Yeah.
saying to other competitors, "Don't use this competitor,"
That's the problem right there, right?
that's the problem.
I think that is the problem. But then hold on, you know the whole saying, in the absence of value, it comes down to price, right? And then you have and they have all those other sayings which says like it's price is always a race to the bottom. Um, I would think that in a more complete free market, that we wouldn't have this issue because they would both have people that want to use them, and it would force us as an industry to really almost regroup and create a deeper sense of value. Like, what is it that we actually offer for this amount of charge for our service?
Well, that's a great point, and but I think realtors have had a difficult time proving their point for years,
Yeah, we have. But
right?
now I think we're forced to do it.
Well, now you're forced to. So before that, so it's all part of this idea of price mixing and
Yeah,
conspiracy. When you see the conversations in social media where agents would say, "Don't, you're worth it." Somebody says, "Oh, the seller asked me to pay them a rebate," or they asked me to, "Don't do that. Don't charge less. You're worth more." You see this all the time. Well, that's
yeah,
kind of like saying, "Well, you got to charge, but you got to charge more because if you don't charge more, that hurts all of us."
yeah.
And it the it's with social media, what's happening is people are hanging themselves.
Yeah, they are. I found that section in the article that I wanted to share with people. As you're listening to Saul, be very careful as to what you place out there as far as other companies, competitors, brokers, because some of these things, and here it is, I put up the link to this. Some of these things can be very specific and can be used against our industry, like it's being used right now with the Homey case. So it's okay to rest on your values versus another company's values. But when it comes to steering because of price and saying you're not going to show, that at that point you bring the consumer in. And that's the challenge right there. Anytime the consumer is involved. So there are more to this, but I highlighted this in that article. Anything you want to add there, Saul?
Well, and we can send people this whole outline if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I see this, and you do too, Tristan. The other day there was a conversation about syndicating your listing data. And so somebody said, well, we shouldn't, let's take our data. Let's sit. Well, you know what? That could be a group boycott. I hear
Good.
complaints about Zillow a lot. Well, let's just not use them, right? People talk about that could be a group boycott. If all of a sudden if people took that serious and they started, Zillow could have a claim that
Yeah.
that people affected their business model based on their statements in social media to get people really to boycott and boycott a competitor, competitors boycotting competitors,
Yeah.
right? So that's a problem. And I guess the biggest lesson for us here is be careful what you say in social media, right?
Yeah.
Just it gets public. It can be with AI today, they can find all your old comments, right?
Hmm.
Bring them back, and you could get named as a co-conspirator. You might think not, but in the Homey case, some very prominent people have been named, realtors have been named as co-conspirators. Well, how deep could that go? Well, your guess is as good as mine, and we don't want people to be surprised by this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and going back to what we said, and then we'll go over to Sitzer because I'm excited about that one. I want to know Saul, I haven't talked to you about that one, so I want
Yeah.
to know what you think. But before there, just be careful what you say out there, what you type, what you put yourself on video saying. This is why when I go out and speak or do social, I'm just saying, look, it's all about for us as a real estate company, team, brokerage, whatever it is. I rather function as Apple versus some other company that isn't Apple that's always racing to the bottom price wise, right? And for us, it's all about service and elevating the client and the consumer, giving them the best experience, right? And showing them that we have the knowledge to get them to past what they thought was possible, right? And not saying, hey, we're not going to go that route. They're evil. Stop using it, boycott. No, it's not like that. And I think in a fair and open market, you're going to have both. So, um,
Well, I'd add one thing, Chris, and my favorite one of my favorite books was Managing the Future. I read it a long time ago. It's an old book, but in
manage,
the Managing the Future,
looking it up.
is probably from the 80s or 90s. But in it, they talked about consumer demands.
Okay.
What are the consumer demands? And so what do consumers want? And that what you have to do is you want to structure your business around the consumer demands, around what consumers demand. Here's what Managing the Future said are the consumer demands. I think they're relevant today.
Is that by Peter Drucker?
No, I can't remember the author, but
Okay.
I'm sure there's a lot of Drucker in it. Father of modern management, Peter
Yeah.
Drucker. So
He's
here
awesome.
are the consumer demands: speed, convenience,
Okay.
choice, value added, quality, service, discounts, and information. So you want to give the consumer what they want. You don't have to give them all eight,
Okay.
but right, you don't have to. If you don't want to give them discounts, don't give them discounts, but give them speed. Think about it. People will pay more money to have something done quickly. They'll pay a premium for convenience. 7-Eleven, you pay a lot more when you go to 7-Eleven to buy a loaf of bread, but you're willing to do it because you want it now.
Mm,
People want choice. So in your elevator pitch, in your marketing pitch, in your value proposition, integrate those consumer demands: speed, convenience, choice,
yeah.
right? Value added, quality, service, discounts or not,
Or not. Yeah.
and
Listen,
information.
we choose not to discount. So that's not us, but you know what? There's room for everybody.
I'll pay more money if you can do it for me now
And and do it at a high level,
and
right?
do it with quality, right?
That's true. All right, let's shift over. We've got a few minutes left. We're probably going to go over about 5 to 7 minutes, everyone. So if you can hang in there, we're going to talk about Landian, and that's
And
the Sitzer business. He's got two other partners on this. I did a whole video on this, and you know how I feel. I think it's just like another discount company out there. And again, there's going to be room for everyone. We've seen some of these go out of business, and we've also seen some go up, but then go down, depending on the market, right? And this one, I'll show you really quick if you missed our video earlier a few days ago. This is Landian.co, and you put up a link from any website like a Zillow or a Redfin, and it starts populating that website, that property information, which I'm not even sure if that's okay to do. That was a whole different thing, but let's continue. I'll ask Saul in a little bit. And then you give it about a minute because it's a little slow because it's new. And then it populates it. And then you obviously you have to have this if you're Sitzer because you want to make sure that buyers are angry. It's a whole angle, right? It's marketing. It's marketing here, and it's normal. And then at the bottom, it says join the real estate revolution. It explains to you what he just did. Obviously, you've been paying attention, so you know that he was one of the what is this defendants on well no a prosecution
plaintiff.
plaintiff on 418 million against NAR. And then you've got the comparison. Some people have been saying, well, how can you put a percent here, right? Aren't you just saying that we should all be at 3%? Are you doing the same thing you went up against? I don't know. But the other part is You can also participate in this as a real estate agent, which which is crazy to me because
Be be careful, don't group boycott this guy.
no, it's just crazy. Like, you know what? It to me, it reminds me like there's a room for everyone, right? So here it is. Unlock the landing advantage. Here's what you get. A la carte service, exclusive buyer representation, compliance made easy. And look, let me stop sharing. It may or may not work. I don't know. But we've seen Purple Brick is the one that I remember. Purple Brick. That was from England, I believe. And then they came in here maybe 2 or 3 years later. They disappeared. That didn't work. Will this work? I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about it? I haven't talked to you about this, Saul. What do you think, man?
So purple bricks and many like it were pre-settlement.
Yeah.
Actually, were pre-judgment. There was a judgment. We're talking about the settlement, but there was a judgment, right? And we're going to hear from the DOJ. So what's interesting to me about this is that they've come up with solutions that match what they got out of the court case.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I looked at it, I saw some interesting things. One of the things that we're all struggling with is the touring agreement.
Yeah.
But here's the plaintiff in the case. He's going to generate and create a touring agreement.
Yeah.
But it'd be kind of interesting to see what he thinks the touring agreement should look like.
Yeah. I want to know.
Yeah. So to me, this looks like what they've done. It's kind of ingenious if you think of it. This is capitalism, right?
Yes.
Go to court, get this major decision, and then structure a business around the outcome. And what they're offering are new ways to charge for real estate transactions. And they're not really new ways, they're ways that didn't really catch on in the past because of the conspiracy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so these are ways that people have talked about for years and even used in some cases. And so to me, there were a number of interesting points here. And I think I might have even outlined them, right? First of all, um, it's a platform, it's not a broker.
Yeah. Very
That's an
true.
interesting approach or a platform. And they're going to provide a way to schedule showings. And remember, showings was a big deal in this proposed settlement. And they got a form you can fill out that they must feel satisfies the settlement. We're all debating how long does it have to be and what has to be in it. Here, these people were at the table, the bargaining table. So I think that's important. And they're charging for tours. Now,
Mm.
I've always said that real estate agents, the way the real estate industry works is it's all contingency based. It's work for free, work for free, work for free, work for free, close the deal,
Yeah. That's how
right?
it's been.
That's how it's been. So, like before the judgment, how much did you get paid when you took somebody out and showed them property? Probably nothing, right?
No. Yeah. Nothing. I didn't do the buyer broker agreement.
Yeah. So now they're saying, hey, we're going to set you up. You're going to be able to go and tour the property. It's going to cost you $49. And then we're going to create contracts for you. And we're going to have AI create. If we have,
Did see that. Yeah.
if we have one of our agents do it, remember, they're not a broker, then it's going to cost you like $199 to do it. I'm kind of curious about that. How much is the agent share?
Yeah. That was my question. And I have a separate question. So wait, I'll let you know. Go ahead.
And then $99 if we let AI create the contract for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I have a package deal, $1,799, how much is the agent share? And then what they're saying to agents, it's almost like lead generation. If you think, if you're an agent, sign up with us, you'll get paid. This is the new way to charge. But it's also interesting if you go on to, they say, but you have to communicate with these people on our platform, and you can't do business with them off our platform.
Mm-hmm.
They really are customers, but we're not a broker and we're not taking any liability.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, so they make this interesting statement: Landian agents. No, they're people that sign up with Landian, but they're really the agents of their broker. And by the way, you as an agent, you can't do this. Your broker has to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Landian agents are very economical because they earn money for every service they provide, unlike traditional agents who only earn income 10% of the time. And so what
Hmm.
they're saying is and we've known this, there's inefficiencies in the structure
Yep.
of the way real estate is compensated, but buyers and sellers have been willing to put up with this because they don't want to pay if there's no result.
Yeah.
They only want to pay if there's a result. And that's the big shift in this model is asking people to pay before there's a result. Now they go on to say if nothing closes, the $1,799 is not due, but you still got to pay for the tour, right? And you still got to pay for the writing of the contract. So I think it's an interesting take. I think it's really entrepreneurial for the plaintiff in this litigation to create a business model around it. They haven't raised much money. It says they're still at the friends and family stage, so they haven't even gotten their seed round yet.
Should we
Um,
invest?
I'm not gonna.
That was just a question.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that heck, this might be part of the model.
Should
This might,
NAR invest? Should
huh?
NAR? I said,
Yeah,
should.
maybe they should go to the REACH program from NAR,
They
right?
should.
But
All
it's
right,
an interesting take, right?
two questions on this then. One, what is the E&O insurance situation here? One. And number two, let's say we go through this whole process. The agent that they hire, let's say I decide to work with Landian, and I'm like, guys, I'm in. Whatever your split's cool. I'm still going to request my a compensation commission, whatever. I'm going to request something from the seller. Okay, Landian? And if I get it, do I split that with you, Landian? Or what happens at
Well,
that
I
point?
think they're saying that if you're working with them, you can't do that with the clients they provide you. That they're
At all. Because
at
I
all.
tried to read through that and I couldn't see that.
I don't think you can do that. But you could still run your own practice your own way, and you could use them for certain, maybe it'd be a training ground for new agents.
Hmm.
I mean, there might be different ways this model fits into an existing model.
Yeah, listen, man, I'm reaching out to them. I want to learn more, right? And there are competition. So in the world that we live in the United States, it's good to get to know your competition, know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what better way to do it than just test it out? Run with it.
Well,
See what the
and they
weaknesses are.
gotta believe that what they're doing is compliant with the
Oh,
settlement,
yeah,
right?
of course they've got to believe it. Michael says so they aren't a broker, so they are using the E&O insurance for the agent and brokers that they sign up to work with them. And that's true. So Saul, what happens then, man?
Well,
Because
so my thought about E&O, I don't know what kind of E&O they've got or liability insurance they've got, but my thought is before I would, as a real estate broker, before I would sign up, I'd talk to my E&O provider to find out what this might do to my E&O,
yeah,
right?
very good point. That's always the biggest challenge, E&O, because let's go to the extreme side of this and let's say, well, this is why we can't it's hard for us through E&O to be able to help a client for free, right? Because it's like, well, damn, all that liability and you're not charging anything, and then EO, you having a problem with E&O, right? So that is a big challenge. I don't know how they're working that, Saul, but good addition to that. And good comment there, Michael. I appreciate that. All right, lastly, here we got 2 minutes. I know we went a little over, Saul. If you want to rapidly tell us what's going on with the Michigan case,
Yeah.
tying MLS to associations, and then we'll continue that next week in the podcast because we're not live next week. We're just doing the podcast.
Yeah, this was the case, and this is an old story. Do you have to be a realtor to access the MLS? And so realtors in Michigan are suing a group of them to say that I shouldn't need to be a realtor to access the MLS. And we know that in California, Georgia, Florida, and Alabama, based on two cases, Thompson and Paulson, you don't need to be a realtor to access the MLS. And other states have gone along with it, and some states have not. And Michigan, I guess, is one that has not gone along with this. And so this illegal tying, where when you have a when you're a dominant market force, you can't insist oftentimes that somebody join one organization to get a benefit from another organization, and that other organization being one that if you can't participate, you can't do business. It's so important in the marketplace. And so that's this Michigan case, and it's been tried before, the idea, and we know that in like the four states I mentioned and others, it's already a way of life. You don't need to be a realtor. You don't need to be a member of the National Association, the state association, and the local association to access your MLS. Now, in some states you do, in some MLSs, they make that requirement. NAR doesn't make that requirement and hasn't in a long time in their MLS rules. So that's just a rehash of an old idea that we've been living with in California since I think 1976.
Yeah. So let's see what happens there, and then we'll go into that a little further. By the way, I did put in the link there to our podcast. So we only run this live every other week, and then the other weeks we do it recorded. We do about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. We bring up other things that we haven't talked about here. Lastly, Bridget brought up the Realtor.com case. I'm assuming it's the Realtor.com case where those group of agents went and sued Realtor.com or Move, right? Because it includes Op City and everything else, and said that they purposefully scraped badly or put together leads that weren't really leads, and they were selling them to agents. And these group of agents said, yeah, you know what? You're selling us people that didn't even want to be spoken to. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens there. We'll talk about this one for sure as it develops.
Let me
Because
throw,
go
let me
ahead.
just
So,
throw something at you on this because this has been something that's been on my mind for many years, and that is how many real estate transactions are there in a year?
I knew you were going to bring that up, man.
5 million, maybe.
Well,
So
if we include both sides,
yeah,
that's
10,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
10 million, 10 to 12 million. And yet all of the big portals say we had 50 million visitors this month,
Yeah.
60 million a month. We had 80 million visitors. And so people got to realize that visitors to these portals are not buyers oftentimes, and they're not sellers because we know when all is said and done, there's only going to be 6 million transactions on a good year. That's 12 million sides. And so 50 million people a month, come on, how many are really buyers? So we know that a lot of the leads that people get online are not truly leads.
Yeah.
And I used to, kid, here's the phone book. You want some leads?
It's the
Remember the
same
phone
thing.
book? Here, start calling.
That's so funny. And everyone, I put up the YouTube channel there. Please subscribe. We upload these and the podcasts in there every week. If you don't want to listen to the podcast, you can watch us there. And that's every week as well. It's the same thing as the podcast, except visual. Usually John Riley joins us. He's under the weather today. So we'll hopefully bring him back next week, and then we'll touch on some new things. And then as we get closer to November, Saul, is November 26th or November
Yeah,
27th?
I think it's the 26th. Yeah.
As we get closer to November 26th, we're expecting, at least I am, I'm expecting the Department of Justice to step in some way and say something and saying, hey, you guys almost got it right. You need to tweak just these two things, and I think we'll be okay. That's what I think will happen. So this is why I'm like looking at this and saying, okay, when are you guys stepping in? When are you guys stepping in? Right. So
I think we're all waiting for that. Hey, I saw a question from Michael, and we probably should kind of address it. It has to do with equity coming in and venture capitalist outside money
great.
funding MLSs. And what do we think about it? And so when you think about MLSs, they got content, but what they don't have, and they have capability. MLSs have content and capability. What they lack is capital. And
Yeah.
so MLS, even without an offer of compensation, is a great value. It creates a marketplace. I'm an advocate for MLS and the concepts of MLS. And so the data that's maintained inside the MLS, and not just the number of bedrooms and the number of baths, but transactional data is critical and valuable to the capital markets. And so I think that as we look to the future of ML, if MLS has had more capital, they could actually get by all the litigation and all of the issues and really create the MLS of the future,
Hmm.
which I think that the MLS of the future shouldn't cost you anything to participate in. And if we knew how to monetize the data properly,
Yep.
there's ways to do this. If we knew, but we don't have the capital right now. If we could figure out how to do it, think about it. The internet, the way it works is content creators get paid for their content unless you're in real estate. And then
Hmm.
you provide all this content, and other companies turn your content into billion-dollar enterprises.
Yep.
And so, is there a way for us and to be able to take the content that we have and utilize that content in such a way that we would actually get paid for the content? Wouldn't it be great if you could get paid for your listing and paid for your images, and then if it got used in the future, get paid again? And with blockchain, who knows where this goes? But
Listen.
I believe that we
Yeah.
need capital to do it. So I'm not saying that that particular case is necessarily the situation in Colorado is good or bad, but the general concept of more capital
Yeah.
for MLSs makes sense to me, because what we really need is we need content, we need capability, and we need capital. And we got the content and we got the capability and we need the capital. And where are we going to get it? And maybe we bring in outside owners, and MLSs are great businesses. They're
Mm.
subscription businesses, they're
Yeah.
cash flow businesses.
Yeah.
And so there's, I think, a lot to be said for what I call MLS 6.0. I wrote a paper
Wait,
16 years ago, MLS 5.0. Now I'm
did you
looking for MLS 6.0.
did you put it in the data advocate?
I think I talked, the MLS 5.0 is at the Data Advocate.
All
And
right, there it
actually,
is.
the MLS 5.0 actually kind of came into fruition. We're almost there. The
Yeah.
next step is MLS 6.0. This is where we figure out ways to monetize the value of the MLS beyond what we're currently doing it, to the benefit of the real estate brokers and agents who work so hard to make MLS a reality.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think if we think of MLSs like YouTube, right? Like for instance, last week I did a video on Landian, right? I got 9,000 views. Those 9,000 views made $230, right? Now, think about this as an agent. Just like you said, depending on how many listings I have, that's data that I gathered, right? Those are pictures, videos, data information that I got. I should be compensated in some way if we're treating it like social media, like a YouTube. And we don't have the money to compensate because we just don't. And so I think in order not to just compete with the world that's evolving, but also to compete against all those other companies that are trying to crush us, we need money and we need a
Yeah.
lot of money coming in. And that's why I think private equity, money in that from them is important for us to evolve and survive.
Yeah, absolutely, Tristan. And they've got ways to monetize this that we don't have.
Mhm.
And so, and think about transactional data. Think about how valuable transactional data is to the secondary money market, to Fannie and Freddie, and to those people that buy loans. So to know, it's one thing to get the information from the county recorder. Imagine if you could get it from an MLS where it's almost real time.
Yeah, it is real time, dude. Come on. We uploaded, boom, done. And you know, we would figure it out if we had enough money. The tech would just evolve too. All right, we can talk about this for another hour because we have before in a previous podcast. So for now, that's all we've got for you. Tune into the podcast next week, and then 2 weeks from now, live, we'll bring you an update. We'll have John Riley. Saul, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
Great to see you, Tristan. Take care, man.